Happy Thursday, I should say Saturday night, everybody. Welcome into a special breaking news here for Dog Nation, as was reported yesterday by Chip Towers, the AJC, and now all over everywhere, and essentially a done deal. Dan Lanning is leaving Georgia as defensive coordinator, where he has been here in this spot for the last couple of years. He'll now step out there and become Oregon head coach. Quite a promotion and quite a job for Lanning, who's just 35 years old, and quite a rise for him through the ranks. His former teacher and PE teacher, I should say, PE teacher, and young coach, kind of working his way up the ranks to where he's been in the college game. Lanning has told these stories before, and now he had a chance to be a head coach, one of the most high-profile jobs in all of college football out there at Oregon, probably the second biggest job in the country west of the Colorado River, certainly probably behind only USC in prominence in the Pacific time zone. It's a big job. It's a big promotion there for him, and a great opportunity. And if you're a Georgia fan, you obviously have, I think, probably bittersweet feelings about some of this related to, Lanning's a guy that has been popular with the UGA fans. I said at the beginning of the year that Lanning's decision not to take the big, financial boost that he could have gotten by going and becoming Texas defensive coordinator was a great game for UGA. And I think that's been proven out throughout the season. Obviously, the last game, Georgia did not play well defensively, but we're not going to, act like the 12 games prior to that didn't happen. Georgia obviously had a tremendous season defensively, and the story of the Georgia defense has now been well told, and Lanning obviously played a huge role. And then I think his decision to come back this season for Georgia greatly aided the Bulldogs. It was pretty clear he was on the fast track to some sort of big promotion. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that he gets a job of this magnitude so soon in his coaching career. I think it speaks to the way in which he interviews, the way in which he carries himself, the way in which he, certainly presents himself as a sharp professional in every manner possible. And so you're happy for him on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're kind of left to wonder, well, what does this mean for UGA? Chip Towers, who broke this story yesterday, is saying at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that Lanning will be with UGA now through the college football playoff. And obviously, much like Kirby Smart was doing double duty for Alabama in 2015, Lanning now doing that for Oregon. The difference in 2021 and 2015, when Kirby Smart was finishing up his tenure there at Alabama, there was obviously no early signing period back then. We said this before. That was really fortunate for Georgia that Smart was able to get his program going the way that it did in kind of that spot where he was 1 foot in Athens and still 1 foot in Tuscaloosa. Whereas for coaches who are taking jobs right now, knowing that the early signing period looms on Wednesday, it's just a really difficult challenge. Now, in the case of Oregon, their job thrown open because Mario Cristobal left to go become Miami coach. So, this is a situation that from Oregon's perspective is a little bit unavoidable, whereas schools that chose to fire their coach kind of did so with the timing of the early signing period in mind for all of that. So that's kind of the story right now. According to Chip, Lanning will be with UGA through the playoffs, and obviously it'll be a little bit of divided responsibilities there. Fact of the matter is, there's a lot of capable minds there for Georgia when it comes to all of this. I believe Chip's also reporting that next year Glen Schumann and Muschamp will team together as co-defensive coordinators, if I saw that correctly. One way or another, we know that the influence of both those guys will remain pretty heavy with the program. So we'll kind of cover all this on this breaking news here on video on a Saturday night. It is my son's birthday, so we just finished up his party a little bit. Hold on, let me turn this down. So we will we'll do this quick. We'll let you sound off. We'll answer some questions about this, and then we will let you get going here on a Saturday night. But I'm happy to check in with you here for a few minutes. Sandy Bryce says, promote Glen Schumann, great coach and recruiter. He's absolutely earned it. Yeah, I do think that Glen Schumann, one way or another, is in line for a bigger role now for UGA because of all of this. I think that one of the things that Kirby Smart has done well, and I don't think he's always gotten credit for this, and I'll read you the statement from Kirby Smart here in a moment on this. One of the things that Smart's always done really well, and this is not as easy to do as Smart has made it look. He has identified coaches who are on their way up, and Georgia's really gained from having these young, up-and-coming, rising stars in the coaching ranks. When Dan Lanning was hired by Georgia, I had no idea who Dan Lanning was. I couldn't have picked him out of a lineup. I had never heard of him before. He didn't have a robust resume. And yet when you heard him talk for the first time, you got a chance to meet him, you realized, oh, wow, this is guys just like the rest of these dudes, cut kind of from the same cloth in terms of the way that he's driven, the way that he's ambitious, the way that he has a real, desire to succeed. And it's pretty obvious that Smart's just good at, having a large network of potential candidates for coaching jobs and really good at identifying who really can stand the heat that comes with a place like UGA. No doubt, Smart did a great job of identifying Lanning. And as the commenter mentioned, the person of Glen Schumann. Remember, Glen Schumann's also a very young guy as well. When Schumann was tabbed by Smart to be on his first staff, Schumann prior to that was an analyst at Alabama. He was not an on-field coach. This is his first coaching job ever at the University of Georgia, and he's been promoted to larger roles over the course of the time here. But once again, this is an example of Smart really identifying a star on the rise, and Georgia has benefited from that young energy that a guy like Schumann provides. And so my guess is that Schumann really is ready for a larger, more expanded role now. Trey Scott's a lot like that too. Scott had been a defensive line coach at North Carolina, but at the time, UNC wasn't really recruiting in the same weight class that it probably is now. It's very difficult to know what Scott was going to be based on his time in Chapel Hill. He had just gotten the Ole Miss job, but once again, he'd only been on that job for a very short tenure, not really enough time to see how he was going to fit there in the SEC. But no one can deny that Trey Scott's turned out to be a terrific defensive line coach for Georgia. This is another example of a young up-and-comer that Smart pegged right away. Now, not every coach that Smart's hired has been young up-and-comers, but the problem is for the established veteran-type guys, the guys that you kind of hired knowing they're a little bit of a sure thing, there are never going to be enough of those to go around. The same small handful of assistants kind of bounce from school to school in the SEC because they'll always be in demand. Look at Corey Raymond leaving LSU to go to Florida, for instance. There's examples of that. Of we kind of know this guy's a hard-driving, recruiting-minded position coach, and he'll go work this place for a while, then he'll go work at this place for a while, and they just kind of move around from place to place. But there'll never be enough of those. Much the same way there's not enough elite talent in the player ranks, there also are not enough elite high-level coaches. So you will have to have a pipeline of young coaches that you're pulling from to be able to fill out your roster. And Smart's kind of proven himself to be really good with all of that. I'll take a couple more Facebook comments. We'll do YouTube and dognation.com. John Chittum says, will this impact next week's signing class? I don't think so. I wouldn't imagine so. I'm sure that recruits themselves are probably sometimes made aware of this kind of stuff sooner than others are. Listen, Georgia's still got a very deep crop of defensive coaches as a part of this class. So I'm sure it's unsettling for a recruit when you want to come to a program and one of the coaches that you thought you were working with is not going to be there anymore. I'm sure that's unsettling. But I would say that Georgia has a lot to sell itself beyond just the presence of Lanning. So I can't imagine anyone changes their mind on the basis of all of this. And as far as the timing of it goes, this is announced. It was reported yesterday by Chip. Great job by him, obviously, getting that out there. Reported by Chip yesterday. And you think, oh, man, to hear about this just less than a week before signing day, that's obviously bad timing. I'm really not quite so sure what you do about that. These things are happening right now. Programs want coaches. Coaches want to be promoted. Dan Lanning wants to go get a bigger and better job than Georgia defensive coordinator. You can't fault him for feeling that way. And sometimes the recruits kind of get caught in the middle on all this. It is certainly an imperfect system, of course, but it is the one we have right now. Also on the subject of Will Muschamp. Yeah, listen, we all knew that in the case of Muschamp, that his presence of defensive mind, and one of the things that Kirby Smart's talked about before, maybe we'll kind of dig some of this kind of stuff out, is that if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, Smart was talking about how Will had now worked at so many other places that he's not quite the Saban clone that maybe Smart would be. And I guess if Kirby was here, he might be able to explain ways in which his defense has grown to be different than Nick Saban's too. But I think Smart's kind of said in the past that because Will Muschamp was in Texas for a while, and then he obviously became a head coach in a couple of different spots, that over the course of time, maybe Muschamp's defensive philosophy kind of got some other influences to it. And so maybe now if Muschamp's going to have a larger say in how this defense is put together, it could be that we see some slight differences here just based on the fact that Muschamp's kind of traveled in some different areas over the course of the last couple of years. Greg Childers says would rather lose Dan Lanning than Todd Monken. Yeah, certainly in the case of Monken, it seems that he might be more difficult to replace. Obviously, no one, I think, is glad to see Dan Lanning go. I would say it's appropriate for Georgia fans to be happy that he's getting a promotion. I think you do want to be the kind of program where assistant coaches do, rise up the ranks pretty fast. But while you're happy to see Lanning get a promotion, you may be a little bit obviously sorry to see him leave. But it does seem like with the presence of guys like Schumann and the presence of guys like Muschamp, you've got a lot here that you can clearly replenish your defensive coordinator spot with. We go over here to the YouTube side of things just for a moment. So if you're just joining us, the news that's out there, as reported yesterday by Chip Towers and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Dan Lanning is now the head coach at Oregon, and sounds like he's going to be with UGA through the playoff, but obviously leaving after that. Georgia sounds like turning to guys like Glen Schumann and Will Muschamp to be his replacement as defensive coordinator. Oh yeah, by the way, Center Point Media, and I apologize for not already bringing this up, brings up a very good point that ironically, Georgia will open the 2022 season against Oregon. So you're talking about a wild scenario, and I'm sorry I haven't brought this up before now. It's really crazy to consider in Atlanta, Georgia, Oregon to start next season. So how about the fact that, you talk about, there's a gigantic media apparatus around Georgia anyway. Can you imagine the hype for Lanning's first game coming against his old team? That's really pretty amazing. Pro King 123 on YouTube says, I'm glad that he's staying for the national championship run. Yeah, I am there as well. I am there as well. Let's see what else. Reformation Logistics says, BA, get with it. What's wrong with me? I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. But either way, BA's Cardigan also asked how distracted is Dan going to be now, and how long has this been in the works? Was Dan looking at Oregon when he's preparing for Alabama? Listen, I know this kind of stuff comes up of, I guess Georgia had a bad defensive game plan because Lanning's attention was divided on somewhere else. Listen, every assistant coach is always trying to become a head coach. This is a profession and these guys are ambitious. So, I don't know that I necessarily draw a line towards, Lanning had his mind on Oregon or some other head coaching job, and therefore Georgia had a bad defensive game plan against Alabama. Now, I'm sure for a lot of Oregon fans, it probably makes the sell a little more difficult, knowing that the most recent game for Lanning was not a very good game. But I really don't put much on that. But I guess it's worth asking. David Botter says the Kirby coaching tree is growing right before our eyes. And yeah, it's actually kind of cool to think about that Sam Pittman got a huge promotion, also kind of a shocking head coaching job to go from offensive line coach to Arkansas head coach. That's a huge promotion there. Pittman had worked a lot of different places, but that's a kind of a Kirby coaching tree type guy. Mel Tucker's obviously credited a lot of others for his success, including Nick Saban, but most recently he was Georgia defensive coordinator. He's now doing a great job at Michigan State after going to Colorado before that. And now Lanning here, who I think is clearly a part of the Kirby Smart coaching tree, is now a head coach at Oregon. That is an amazing, amazing promotion. The other thing that kind of comes to mind here is how, and all this is just kind of stream of thought here, because 5 minutes ago I was eating birthday cake at a birthday party, and now I'm sitting here doing all this with you. So all of this is just kind of my stream of consciousness for a moment. But there are a lot of defensive-minded hires right now. Think about Brent Venables going to Oklahoma, now Lanning going to Oregon. Think about the way in which big bucks kind of thrown around for some of these defensive coordinators, even moved around a little bit. The Penn State defensive coordinator becomes Virginia Tech head coach. Defense has played a larger role in the college football story this season than it has the last couple of years. Now, last Saturday in the SEC championship game, obviously the better offense won that game once again, which seemed to kind of continue the trend. But at a certain point, when you've got, just scoring all over the place, offensive guys all over the place, like eventually the more and more people are kind of replicating the same kind of thing there, those kinds of offensive touchdowns do become devalued a little bit. And all of a sudden, any stop that you can get becomes just more valuable. And so it is interesting here in 2021 that that defense has played a larger role in the college football story. Michigan is in the playoff largely because of its defense. Georgia's back in the playoff again for the second time since 2017, largely because of its defense. That I'm not going to say that the balance of power is completely shifted away from the high-powered offenses, because obviously last Saturday would seem to argue against that. But it's pretty clear that defense has played a larger role in the college football story here this season than it has prior. And all of the defensive-minded guys who get the big head coaching positions. I mean, at one point in time, the Oregon program was about Chip Kelly and, playing 100 miles an hour. And now they've turned to a guy like Lanning to lead their program in the future. Venables, the longtime defensive coordinator at a place like Oklahoma, which had, Lincoln Riley as his previous head coach. You see defense having a little bit of a moment, a little bit of a return to fashion a bit here. B.A. Scargan says Navy also just upset Army. I didn't get to watch any of the Army-Navy game today. Ronnie Green, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Steve Self said, go be with your son. Yeah, in a couple minutes I will. I just wanted to kind of pop in here and say hello to y'all. Let's go. Brandon says, and yes, I know I said that again, but I want to give him his comment here. He says, so will Muschamp be our DC? I believe what Chip is reporting, and y'all, you got to understand, I'm like just fresh, brand new on this, is that could be Schumann and Muschamp in a co-DC situation. Have I seen that correctly? Let me also read the comment from Kirby Smart here. Michael, if you can help me with this, because you Michael Carvel's kind enough to produce here for a moment. Can you confirm what Chip is reporting on that Atlanta Journal-Constitution related to Chip's got a story in the last 10, 15 minutes about Lanning staying through the playoff. Michael, if you're there and can confirm what Chip has reported about the defensive coordinator situation, I want to kind of get that out there. So Smart says, we're happy for Dan and his family. He and Sophia have been an important part of our Bulldog family for the last 4 years. We thank them for all they did for Georgia football and the Athens community. Opportunities like this are a testament to a successful program. That's 100% right. You don't have defensive coordinators leave and go be Oregon head coach unless you're doing something right. So Kirby Smart's 100% correct on that. He says, while he will coach with us for the upcoming college football playoff, we will move forward with Glen Schumann and Will Muschamp as co-defensive coordinators. Okay, so if I would have just read what Michael had already sent, I would have been able to confirm this a little bit more clearly. So this is Smart actually putting this out there, that it's Schumann and Muschamp, co-defensive coordinators. This is Smart saying that's the future plan, but Lanning does stay there for the college football playoff. So there you go. So that's fun stuff there too. Let me bring in, y'all talked about Charlie before. So it's his birthday today. He's 10 years old here today. Let's say hello to him here for a minute. Let's bring my daughter in here, Kate, there as well. They wanted to come be on video for a second because they were kind enough to share some of their time with us here today. And Charlie, did you have a good birthday party today? Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. What do you think about Dan Lanning going to Oregon?
I feel like I feel like he's going to bring the winning to Oregon.
You think he's going to bring some winning to Oregon?
Hopefully not in their next upcoming season.
He says hopefully not in the next upcoming season because they play Georgia to start the year. Kate, thanks for being on here too. Can you say hello to everybody?
Hi!
Okay, well, let's send you back up there, and I'll be off the air there in just a minute. So happy birthday to Charlie.
Yeah, make sure you get
Okay, y'all get out of here. So they're obviously having a good time. So the bottom line, Schumann and Muschamp, as Smart says there, co-defensive coordinators, and of course, Lanning sticking around through the college football playoff. All right, a couple more comments. We're going to bounce out of here and let y'all get on with your night. And then we'll obviously talk a lot more about this on Monday on Dog Nation Daily. A chance to continue with the discussion here. Big news kind of rolling in with Dan Lanning moving on to become Oregon head coach, sticking with UGA for the playoffs, and then turning to a co-defensive coordinator combination. And what a tandem this is. Very young, up-and-coming name Glen Schumann with Will Muschamp, who's as high level of defensive guy as you can possibly have. So at dognation.com, we'll get a couple of your comments. And then after that, we are out of here on a Saturday night. All right. In dognation.com here for a moment. Paige Holloway also laughing about Lanning losing his first game as coach to his old team, Georgia. Obviously, it'll be weird cheering against Dan Lanning for those of us who I think have enjoyed cheering for him. I know I certainly have. It'll be weird to do that. DC Dog says, I hope Lanning makes Mel Tucker like money, but loses his opening game. There you go. Or in Chile says, do you think he should have held out for an SEC job? Yeah, I don't think you see a whole lot of holding out for jobs much anymore, just because these jobs, as somebody mentioned a moment ago, they're paying so much now, and they're giving these like multi-year deals where it's just life-changing money. And I hate to be this way, but Lanning could go to Oregon, fall flat on his face, and be a total abject failure, and yet financially he's set for life. And I think most of us would take that. We would take that money, because if he wants to be the great defensive coordinator, he can always go back and do that again if he wants to. But the kind of money, if you were to turn that down at a place like Oregon, it's the kind of money you would maybe potentially just never get back, because who knows if you're the flavor of the month, if you're the hot name in a couple of years. Sometimes you just sort of have to strike when the opportunity is there for you. I think that's what Dan's doing here right now. And as I said before, while it's not of the same stature as a lot of the SEC jobs, it is a place that's obviously, kind of dripping with Nike money. Because of that, it's probably behind only USC in the Pacific time zone. As I said before, if you kind of think about that section of the country, kind of west of Texas, sort of west of the Colorado River, probably the second best job out there. Once again, behind only USC. It's a place that, Oregon's been in the college football playoff in 2014. Oregon played for a BCS title in 2010. This is a program that has some national relevance. This is one of the biggest jobs you can get. Not as big as some of the SEC jobs, but a pretty big job all the way around. Brett Hopkins says, how will this affect unsigned recruits with National Signing Day 3 days away? If I had to guess, I don't know that it makes Georgia's class look all that different. Obviously, UGA has to work quickly on communication with stuff like this. But my guess is, and Zad Thomas said it's bad timing for recruits. It's certainly inconvenient for them, but I don't have any early indication that necessarily going to change where someone signs or anything like that. J-Dog, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate that. So one quick trip through the comment section, and then we'll get ready to wrap things up here today. So if you're just joining us, it's Lanning to Oregon as head coach. Chip Towers reported yesterday, got it right. And now Georgia will, go into National Signing Day on Wednesday with the news that Lanning won't be here next year. And we'll spend some time just kind of making sure that everything's, kind of solid on that front with all those defensive recruits. And the presence of Schumann and Muschamp, I think, allows that to remain true. I'd be very surprised if Georgia loses any recruit because of this. And, there are obviously some battles that will still be waged. For some of these guys like Christian Miller and others, that recruitment was going to go into February anyway. So that probably doesn't change a whole lot there on that. But, Schumann's a beloved figure. Think about like a Shamar James, for instance, who would be coming to Georgia to play under Glen Schumann. That's not changing for him at all. We know what kind of recruiter that Will Muschamp is. I was on the radio this morning on 92.9 The Game for a couple minutes. And one of the things I kind of asked about Muschamp at the time was, like, how much more responsibility does he want? Because I sort of gotten the impression over the course of the last year, Muschamp's been kind of living his best life. He's been around the game, but he doesn't have the spotlight, the responsibility that comes with being a head coach, something he's now been at a couple of different places around the SEC. He has another son that plays high school football in the Athens area. He's been able to watch him play, which is kind of a cool thing. And, he's able to spend time with his, one of his sons and another family member, I forget whom, there as a part of the Georgia staff. So I've gotten the impression that Muschamp probably has really enjoyed himself this year, being able to be a part of the game without having a lot of the pressure that comes from the more substantial job. But apparently he's interested enough in expanding his role that he's agreed to be co-defensive coordinator for next year, which is exciting. And I think a great opportunity for Glen Schumann too, where, you're bringing him along as kind of that next up and coming guy. And I'm sure in a couple of years, we'll be talking about Glen Schumann getting some big job somewhere else, because that's just kind of the way that it goes. Chris Horton talking about some of the moving pieces here with all of that. And obviously we'll be watching to see, how Lanning going to be head coach at Oregon potentially impacts other Georgia staffers. Armand Rashad says Will's been on the road a lot this week, so I'm pretty sure other recruits knew before we did. Yeah, Georgia's going to be good about communicating all this stuff. Let's see what else. William Gleaton on the subject of Jackson Muschamp being Georgia's starting quarterback next year. Listen, there's no shortage of quarterback opinions, of course. David Botter says, I think Lanning will handle a recruiting season like Pittman did. Yeah, what you hate for it, Dan, is and I will admit not to be an expert in Oregon recruiting, but what kind of situations he's stepping into? I mean, obviously in the case of Georgia, for the most part, there's a recruiting machine at Georgia that is not going to be overly reliant on any one guy. But what kind of talent situation is Lanning going to be in Oregon with this little time to get ready? I'm guessing he'll probably do a little bit like what Billy Napier seems content to do at Florida, which is not sign a bunch of people and hold open some scholarships and maybe take a page out of the Mel Tucker book and just go like traveling all-star team with a bunch of transfer portal type dudes. It's actually, especially knowing that Georgia's the first game of next season, seeing how Lanning manages his roster, just stepping into a job is pretty tricky there on that. Green Soldier, thanks for the kind words to Charlie for his birthday. Appreciate that. G. Gray says the coaching game is about promotion. They're going to move on for more money and more advancement. Yeah, listen, if you don't have a coach that's ambitious and wants a promotion, wants more money, wants more responsibility, then you probably don't want that guy in your roster. You know, the guy that's content to stay right where he is, honestly, that doesn't sound like a very alpha type dude for what you're trying to get done here. You want guys who want to go other places, and you want to use that energy they have while you have them. And I would say for the most part, that's what's worked out pretty well. Ron Thomas says, congrats, Dan. Hate to see you go. Yeah, I hate to see that there as well, but you knew this day was coming. I am a little bit surprised a job of this magnitude is coming so soon. And I don't say that to disparage Dan at all. I have long believed that he was a rising star in the coaching ranks, but this happening so quickly is a little bit of a surprise. But this is a great job. I mean, Oregon's a very big job to get. Very impressive. Randy Hall, thanks for the compliments on the nice Christmas tree. Yeah, we're like the Griswolds around here. If I kind of took a little spin around the house here, you'd see all kinds of Christmas decorations. I won't do that with my laptop because you'll get blinded by the light I have in front of my face right now. But yeah, we're very big into Christmas here. All right, let's see what else. Anything else before we go? Robert Hosea says, how does this affect games going forward? You know, I guess I don't mean to give you an uninteresting answer to an important question, but my guess is that it probably doesn't affect things too much. Whether Lanning stays for this game or he's gone, his attention's still clearly going to be divided. And much the same way, I mean, let's say Lanning was sick. You know, we're obviously in kind of an era in which sometimes coaches are taken away from the field. I mean, Georgia would have just done what they're doing now, which is greater responsibility for Glen Schumann, greater responsibility for someone like Will Muschamp. And that's just kind of the way that's going to happen. Now, I think one of the interesting questions comes up before you even get to, well, does Lanning take somebody with him? Before you even get to that, I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the days to come. You know, this does now open up a coaching spot for Georgia. And does that mean that Scott Cochran's ready to step into this role again? Does that mean that, you know, Georgia needs to hire an outside linebackers coach? You know, there's kind of a lot of interesting ways that you could potentially use that 10th spot right here. Hire Mike Bobo. I'm just obviously speculating, but there's there's an open spot here right now. So that's what's made interesting by this, is that the defensive coordinator role is going to be done by Muschamp and Schumann, but they're both already in the staff now. Lanning's departure does open that door. Ryan S. Walker said, I did a phenomenal job on the decorations. I don't get to take credit for these decorations. There's like 3 or 4 ornaments that my wife leaves out for me to hang on the tree, and they're still kind of sitting right here next to the tree. I can't take credit for any of that. That is all her thing. George Herndon says, I hope it's not a distraction on the game. I don't believe that it will be. I really don't. I mean, these are all professional type people, and this is just kind of the way it goes. David Botter says he thinks that Lanning will be a recruiting machine in the future. Yeah, I mean, he's going to bring that kind of SEC style intensity. You know, his geographic strength is probably in that Midwest region there a little bit, you know, given his ties to that Kansas City area. But my guess is he's going to get pretty acquainted with the Oregon situation pretty well. And listen, if you follow high school football closely, one of the things you see is when you look at the offer list for like a lot of the players in Georgia, it's like they've got blah, 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 and Arkansas. It's amazing how many players around the state of Georgia have been offered a scholarship by Arkansas. Someone like Sam Pittman will just come through and just like blanket the entire state with offers. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt kind of does the same thing. You just kind of come through there and you just offer. I think what a guy like Sam Pittman realizes is, hey, I've got to go outside my own state to recruit. Well, it's almost as easy to fly to Georgia as it is to drive to Texas. And so a guy like Pittman, even though he's like 10 hours away from Georgia, is still recruiting Georgia pretty heavily. Oregon's like 3,000 miles away. My guess is you see a good number of state of Georgia offers by Oregon. Now, I'm guessing that Lanning tries to utilize his time in Georgia as a recruiter, and I'm guessing you're going to see a lot of 2024s, 2025s get Oregon offers here really probably pretty soon. I'm guessing that probably goes down. Killian Worthy, I was kind of joking about the Bobo thing. I was kind of joking about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was an analyst or something like that here. Antoine Simpson also mentioning Jarvis Jones is a possibility there. Certainly Jarvis has spent a lot of time around the program. He's been a staffer at UGA. David Cook says Schumann is a must keep. Yeah, if you're just joining us, and I should have read the Kirby Smart statement right off the top, but Glen Schumann is staying at Georgia as a co-defensive coordinator. That was announced by Smart right away. So to give you an idea how not caught off guard by all this that Georgia was, the fact that, Smart's got the congratulatory message ready to go. He's got the Lanning staying with us at the playoff. He's got the co-defensive coordinator already hired. If you're caught off guard by something like this, you're scrambling and trying to, pick up the pieces, then you're not ready to make those announcements. You're not really quite ready to make all that. But Georgia pretty clearly had all its ducks in a row on this. And that's probably why they threw such a tantrum about Chip reporting this yesterday, because they weren't quite ready to say that then, but a day later they are. And all right, whatever else. All right, so we're going to go. Thank you so much. So dognation.com for more on this. I'll see you Monday, Dog Nation Daily, and we'll continue to talk about that and kind of how it impacts signing day playoff and what may happen with that 10th assistant coaching opening there at UGA now, and kind of how all this gets figured out. So thanks for being here. Happy holidays to all of you, and we will look forward to talking to you again next time. Breaking news, Dan Lanning leaving Georgia, head coach at Oregon. Glen Schumann, Will Muschamp as a tandem will replace him as co-defensive coordinators. Thanks to Michael Carvell for helping us be on video here for a moment. All of you have a great Saturday night.